this is Mark Hutten, and today I want to talk to those adults with Asperger's and high-functioning autism. I specifically want to talk about paranoia in the Asperger's mind. Now, certainly not all adults with Asperger's or high-functioning autism have tendencies towards paranoia, and even those that do have varying degrees of paranoia. And let me explain what I mean. Asperger's individuals have what we call mind blindness. And to oversimplify the meaning of that, they simply do not pick up on nonverbal cues. For example, how something is said, the way it is said, and the body language behind what is being said. Since the Asperger's individual does not pick up on subtle cues, they often misinterpret another person's motives. In other words, why the other person is saying what they're saying, or why the other person is doing what they're doing. So when another person does something or says something, the Asperger's individual may become confused and try to make sense of the other person's words or behavior. Unfortunately, too often when the Asperger's mind does not understand another person's motives, that mind will tend to put a negative spin on things. In other words, this person said this or did this to hurt me, to be critical of me, to insult me, to put me down. But if the truth be known, in the vast majority of cases, the other individual who said something that was supposedly hurtful or critical didn't mean to be hurtful or critical at all. Then, all too often, the Asperger's individual, who is now making an assumption that the other person was trying to be harmful in some way, comes back with his own insults and criticisms as a way to defend himself based on perceived threats by the other individual. What can then happen in this case is the other person, whose intentions were of the best initially, now feels attacked, an unprovoked attack, and reacts with true criticism, sarcasm, or put-downs. Now the other person's behavior is not well-intentioned. He feels like he's on the receiving end of an unprovoked attack, and defending himself initiates a counterattack, which in turn affirms in the Asperger's mind that the other individual was out to get him from the start. In other words, now the Aspie has evidence that the other person was trying to be hurtful. So in this hypothetical case, and it is kind of a worst case scenario, by the way, you can see how the lack of understanding the other person's motives and applying a negative connotation to their motives really sets up a destructive cycle. So in this particular scenario, based on a misunderstanding from the start, now both parties are in defense mode. So, to summarize, the progression of things goes something like this. The other individual says something or does something that is confusing to the Asperger's individual because he didn't pick up on the true meaning behind what was being said. Then, out of a sense of confusion and misinterpretation, the Asperger's mind puts a negative spin on the other person's motives. Then, the Aspie may react based on a perceived threat, which in turn may incite the other individual to say things or do things that confirm the Asperger's mind's suspicion that that person had harmful ulterior motives to begin with. This is the true essence of a self-fulfilling prophecy that feeds further paranoia and damages future relationships. So now the question becomes, what can the Asperger's individual do to see to it that this self-fulfilling prophecy does not manifest itself? The answer is quite simple. Ask for clarification. In other words, between the time that an individual says something or does something and your reaction to that, there's a space. And in that space, there's an opportunity to make a good choice. And the good choice is to avoid jumping to conclusions and false assumptions and instead ask for clarification. You could say, I misunderstood what you said perhaps, could you please clarify? Or, I'm not sure I understand why you did this, what's your reasoning behind it? And you will find that in the vast majority of cases, the other individual will be glad to fill you in on exactly what they meant or what they're doing, which totally erases any type of potential for misinterpretation. So, the message to the Asperger's individual, who may feel like he or she has an element of paranoia, depending on the situation and the relationships, is to always ask for clarification regarding another person's motives when you're not sure what they are. Easier said than done, but it sure saves a whole lot of headaches and saves you from damaging a lot of relationships, both with family and at work.